Welcome back to AWANI. Singaporeans will head to polls on 3rd May for the country's 14th general election after President Tharman Shanmugaratnam dissolved Parliament yesterday. Nomination day will be on 23rd April. The upcoming contest will be the first under Prime Minister Lawrence Wong, who was sworn in last May, and Singapore's fourth generation 4G leadership team. To discuss further on the upcoming election and what to expect, with me right now is Professor Shandre Mugan Thangavelu, head of the Jeffrey Chia Institute on Southeast Asia at Sunway University. First of all, Prof, thank you so much for being with us. Professor, how credible is Prime Minister Lawrence Wong's call for a renewed mandate when public sentiment, according to recent polls, suggests widespread dissatisfaction with the government's measures on cost of living?
Thank you for having me here. There are several different dimensions into this. One dimension is, of course, the cost of living, but the new dimension that's added to this equation is the uncertainty that has developed from the Trump reciprocal tariff itself. So in terms of rising costs, Singapore has been experiencing the rising costs for the last decade or so, even after the global financial crisis.
Right.
So fairly the government has put in measures to actually measure and manage the rising costs in terms of supporting the vulnerable group and the vulnerable population, the older workers, the unskilled workers, they have the future skills. So these are dimensions they already put in, fairly to give the stability that Singapore requires to maintain its developed status. And so fairly developed status will converge to 3% growth. And if they get anything more, it's a bonus, but fairly they know that they can maintain that with the policies they put in, the policies for harmonizing the rising costs itself. But the new dimension of the Trump tariff has raised the issue of global uncertainty and the way we're going to grow, the next phase. And the growth will have an important implication for how we're going to support the rising costs itself. So that's the reason why they thought that calling it earlier is one good strategy that allows them to maintain the mandate and improve the mandate. Hopefully, they can improve the mandate themselves.
Yeah. Professor, in what ways can the PAP justify its 124 billion Sing dollars spending plans as effective economic relief and rather than election time populism, especially when critics argue that such handouts may be fueling inflation instead of curbing it?
That's a good question. The question is how to mitigate the rising costs itself. But any social protection policies or any social policies are not meant to drive up inflation, but actually to give the social inclusion and the social protection that the vulnerable group needs. So the benefits and the social protection or the social inclusion policies they put in includes the training of workers, including the future skills training framework itself, and including to cover other important living costs and other elements itself. So having said that, how it will drive up price or how it will manage the rising costs itself becomes important question, because it's a trade-off. The trade-off is I need to protect my people from the rising costs, so I need to provide these subsidies and social protection in not just purely from the demand side, but also from the supply side. The future skills is about the supply side subsidies to increase the competitiveness of workers themselves. And of course, on the demand side, how they're going to manage that will be important to see how the demand side might stroke some inflationary effects. So they have to balance both in terms of how they're going to provide the social protection itself. So it's an election budget anyway. So as an election budget, you expect a little bit more than a normal budget itself.
Professor, given Singapore's vulnerability to external shocks, how equipped is Lawrence Wong's fourth generation leadership team to recalibrate the nation's economic model amid a weakening global trade regime and also rising of protectionism? Your thoughts on this, Prof?
Thank you. That's again a very good question. As I mentioned, the first phase of social protection that come after the global financial crisis was fairly to stabilize and create a more balanced dimension in the economy itself.
Yep.
But with the Trump reciprocal tariff, it has changed the way we're going to grow next, especially how a small economy like Singapore is going to grow. Because if they dismantle the rule-based trading area, and Singapore thrive on a rule base, from manufacturing to services, and even in terms of human capital, multinationals, the rule base is very important for them. So how Singapore is going to gravitate and restructure itself in the rule-based trading framework is going to be very critical for us. So fairly, that's why ASEAN is important. ASEAN centrality is important. And currently, Singapore has a free trade with US. So it still can use the US free trade, but fairly that is going to take a long time to resolve. And then we have the RCEP, the largest global trading bloc within us, and Singapore can play an important role in that framework in terms of digital, green economy, and even skills, and even more 21st century issues can be addressed. And of course, we also have the ASEAN +1 FTAs as a region itself. So fairly, there are key landing points they can use to create a new architecture. So the new team have to think about the new architecture they have to develop and to frame in terms of, as a developed country, what are the avenues they have and how to use the fundamentals to actually increase the competitiveness itself. So the new team that Prime Minister Lawrence Wong is putting out is quite interesting. More young people, more civil servants, the party. And it's also interesting to see how the opposition will put up a strong front, because it has opened up a different dimension of how we're going to manage the growth itself.
Yeah, Professor, with the balance around 2 minutes of our discussion, amid recent corruption scandals and political controversies affecting both ruling and opposition parties, how much trust do voters still place in Singapore's political institution, and will this erosion of trust impact PAP's historic dominance in this election, Prof?
That's a good question. The good question is the issue of corruption has emerged in the Singapore political scenario. But the interesting part about this is the government wants to handle this in a very transparent way. Yeah. And in terms of a rule-based and legal way to handle the corruption issue itself, which actually shows that any developed country with a strong institution is still going to see corruption itself. But having said that, there are issues that are more fundamental than corruption that is going to be very critical for Singapore. The living cost, as rightly pointed out, and public housing is reaching very high prices. That will be another contention. And aging population and how we can go to retain our wealth will also be very important discussion other than corruption itself. So these will be the key election points that will be played out in the election itself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Shandre Mugan Thangavelu, head of the Jeffrey Chia Institute on Southeast Asia at Sunway University, for your thoughts and ideas. And of course, Niaga AWANI, Astro AWANI will bring you more updates on Singapore's 14th general election.